Before we talk about 2020, I want to go back to 2016 for this conversation about election security.
So when I came in March of 2017, as I joined the Department of Homeland Security, I don't think I had any clue what I was getting into. I knew from the Microsoft side about the things the threat actors, the Russians, had been doing, targeting some of the email accounts of officials and think tanks and things like that. But the scope and the scale of election administration in the United States is something that I think most people don't appreciate. And in fact, I would recommend that everyone, at least for one cycle, volunteer to be an election worker. Get out there and understand how our democracy works in the process, and hopefully you'll have a bit of a on the ground understanding of how elections work. Plus, I'd add in that I think due to, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but some of the threats against election workers is going to have a chilling effect, and there's going to be a lot of attrition across election officials. For us, it was really about lessons learned, and the three key lessons learned from the 2016 election were, first, that the federal government did not have a meaningful way to operationally coordinate with election officials on security of their system. So we had to build that up, the mechanisms, the processes for collaborating. The second was the election systems, the administration of elections and the equipment used was fairly dated. In some states, in particular Georgia and Pennsylvania, they didn't have technology in place that would give us confidence in the ability to audit the vote. And we'll come back to that, I'm sure. And then lastly, even internal to the federal government, between the intelligence community, law enforcement community, Department of Defense, CISA, and the cybersecurity experts, we didn't have our act together in a way that could be replicated for 2018 and 2020. So that was really the playbook for first 2018, but then 2020. Is we had to be able to work in a trusted, meaningful way with state and local partners.
Is it a problem that we are this decentralized in our electoral system in terms of securing the vote? And number two, how prepared and secure are these local jurisdictions at protecting the vote from, bad actors?
This is probably the question, whether decentralization is a good thing or a bad thing, that we'll debate for the rest of the republic. But my key takeaway was that the framers got at least one thing right when they said that states, and not the federal, particularly the federal incumbent, dictates the process on how elections run. You never want a participant in a race to be judging the outcome of the race. There's just too much opportunity for mischief and corruption. State and local government agencies writ large need to go through a digital transformation. And I'm concerned that COVID is going to have a disproportionate impact on local communities and their ability to upgrade their technologies.
After the 2016 election, we kept talking about misinformation, disinformation from foreign actors. And suddenly a lot of it was coming from domestic actors, though probably with quite a lot of assistance from foreign actors on social media. And we're all very aware of how that all played out. But I'm wondering, if your thoughts on how that was playing out in real time leading up to Election Day and the immediate aftermath, but also how both of those things come back to that central issue of misinformation, disinformation, and what our response can be to that.
I'm a big fan of what's known as the liar's dividend. And that's where, by talking to the lie or the disinfo, you actually amplify it and you give it credibility. And so there's that balance of, is this one ready for interruption yet? Is it ready? Is it ready? Okay, now it's live, go get it. So you don't want to draw attention to a thing, but if it's already out there, you've got to just kill it with fire. Disinformation in misinformation campaigns are much broader than just the social media platforms. Things have changed so much even since 2016. We saw, for instance, the Internet Research Agency shift off of the building Twitter profiles and pages and Facebook profiles to going to online journals. And even more, they shifted operations to proxy fronts operating out of other countries, including Mexico and Ghana. So they took it out of Russia. They took it to another country where they thought they had some obscurity, and then they start hitting journals and what looks like real media. And so it's just an evolution of the adversary, and that tells me that some aspect of the social media disinfo disruption process was effective. Now that doesn't mean it's all gone away, but something is working. And we've got to keep addressing it. But that's on the supply side. We've ramped up efforts to disrupt supply of disinfo, but I continue to view it as a supply demand problem. I think that's where we have a lot of work to do as a government, as a society. We have to increase digital literacy, civics education. I think too many people just kind of forgot how elections work, and they've probably at the same time become a little too complicated. So we've got to up-level our understanding and our engagement, and make people just a little bit more resilient to the garbage that they may see screaming across the internet.